There's something happening inside you when you see a dog across the street and you already know what it is. That pull, that almost embarrassing urge to cross traffic just to pet a stranger's golden retriever. And if you've ever contemplated that, then this video is specifically about you. Not dog people as a category, but you. The person who, when a dog walks into a room, quietly tracks where it goes. Who notices when it settles near you and feels for a second like that means something. Who has probably said things out loud to a dog that you've never quite managed to say to another person. That's worth having a deeper look at. So, let's start somewhere you might not expect for a video about dogs, yourself. Specifically, what you were like before you ever loved one. People who form deep attachments to dogs tend to share something in their emotional history. And it's not that they had a perfect childhood with a loyal golden by the fireplace. It's almost the opposite, really. Attachment researchers have long observed that people who seek out non-judgmental relationships, and dogs are practically incapable of judging you, often grew up in environments where love felt conditional and affection came with fine print, where you had to earn the room you were standing in. Now, that's not a universal rule, and it's not a diagnosis. It's a pattern that keeps showing up quietly in the background of a lot of people who love animals with an unusual intensity. A dog doesn't do that. A dog has never once looked at you and thought you could be doing better. And somewhere in your nervous system, that registers as something close to sacred. Now, where most videos would say something like, "But it goes even deeper than that," I'm not going to do that. Because actually, for a lot of people, the surface level is already enough. You don't need a traumatic backstory to love dogs with your whole chest. Sometimes you just do. And the psychology of that, the people who love dogs without a wound underneath it, is actually quite profound because those people love with an unusual kind of openness. Think about what it actually takes to commit to a dog fully. You're not entering that relationship blindly. You understand the terms. You know the lifespan. And you say yes anyway. And somewhere in that agreement you end up with something rare. A best friend who asks for almost nothing and gives back everything. There's something in certain people that doesn't shrink from loving something temporary, that actually leans in. Some people do it 4 or 5 times across a lifetime, each dog distinct, each one loved completely on their own terms. It's a form of courage. Most people don't even have a name for. And what's interesting is that research on pet attachment doesn't paint a single clean picture of who bonds most deeply with dogs. Some studies find that people with anxious or insecure attachment styles, people for whom human relationships have felt unpredictable or unsafe, form particularly strong bonds with pets, precisely because the relationship feels more stable and legible. The dog is consistent in a way that people sometimes aren't. It doesn't shift on you depending on the day. And for someone whose nervous system has spent years bracing for that kind of unpredictability, that steadiness lands somewhere much deeper than just comfort. There's a study, one worth actually knowing about, published in Science in 2015 by Nagasawa. When a dog and their owner look into each other's eyes, both of their brains release oxytocin, the same chemical that bonds a mother to her baby, just from a look. And what that really means is that your dog isn't just sitting there receiving your love, they're producing it in you. Every time they look at you, something real is happening in your brain that wouldn't be happening otherwise. You're not just loving them. They are actively, chemically making you feel love. That's more than poetic, if you ask me. Dog people tend to be unusually good at reading nonverbal cues, and that's not a coincidence. Living closely with a dog means you've spent years learning to interpret a creature that communicates entirely without language. You've had to pay attention in a way that most people simply haven't been asked to. That kind of sustained attention to nonverbal signals doesn't just stay with the dog. It transfers. Your brain gets better at the thing you practice, and you've been practicing reading emotional states that aren't spelled out for you. Some personality research does find dog owners scoring higher on empathy measures, though whether that's a cause or a side effect of the relationship is something researchers genuinely haven't settled. What's less debated is the attentiveness. Spending years responsible for something that can't self-report tends to sharpen you in ways that quietly carry over. Most humans can't tell you directly what they're feeling either. But if you've been paying that kind of attention to a dog for years, you're probably more equipped to notice it anyway. Okay, So something a little more delicate that I think deserves to be said. Some people love dogs because dogs are easier, and that's okay. I think we've built this cultural story where loving animals is always noble, always pure, always a sign of great character. And sometimes it is. But sometimes a person gravitates towards dogs because the terms of that relationship are cleaner. Dogs don't gaslight you. They don't go cold for reasons they refuse to explain. They don't make you feel insane for needing reassurance. If you've ever looked at your dog and thought, "You are the only one who gets me," that's not entirely a compliment to your dog. It's also a signal, a quiet one, that something in your human relationships has made closeness feel dangerous. And somewhere along the way, your internal system found a workaround. The people who get the most out of that awareness are the ones who get curious about it rather than just comfortable in it. They notice what the dog is giving them and start asking why they can't find that elsewhere, why they breathe differently here, what it would actually take for a person to make them feel this way. The dog becomes a mirror, a surprisingly useful one. There's a specific loneliness that dog lovers understand that other people just don't. It's not in the typical sense, but the loneliness of being misunderstood, of being in a room full of people and still feeling unseen. Dog people know that feeling intimately, which is possibly exactly why the experience of being fully known by an animal that has watched you cry on the bathroom floor, or watched you eat cereal for dinner 3 nights in a row, watched you at your least composed and stayed anyway, hits so differently. The dog may be the only one that has seen the unedited version of you, and it chose to stay in the room. And maybe that's why losing one wrecks you in a way you weren't fully prepared for. Because you're not just losing a pet, you're losing the one who knew you without needing you to perform. That kind of loss doesn't really have a comparable. People who love dogs deeply are not a niche. They're just people who've experienced a kind of love that doesn't come with conditions attached, and realized how rare that actually is. Being chosen by something that had no obligation to choose you, that does something to a person. You're not excessive for loving your dog the way you do. You just know what it feels like to be loved well, and you decided a long time ago that you weren't going to take that for granted. If you're interested in exploring some of my explanations further, I've put together a collection of books that dive deeper into psychology, human behavior, and independent thinking. You can find the full list on my bookshop page through the link in the description and pinned comment. And if you enjoy content like this, consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss future uploads.